Welcome to Sunday Inspiration. I'm Vicki Haddock. And I wanted to create a place for you to connect to your soul and understand that you can transcend all perceived limits in your life. I've learned that the faster you get past what's holding you back, the stronger you become and the braver you are at taking the next leap. And then the higher you rise and create more freedom than you dreamed possible. Connect to your soul's inner longing, be guided by it, and let go of the weight that's holding you back, and ignite the fire in your soul. What Eiffel Tower-sized thing does your soul want you to do? When you become fearless, you become limitless. Now, prepare to be inspired as I share this week's life journey of one person that has inspired me. Welcome to Sunday Inspiration. This week, I'm here with Sonyan White. She's a conscious uncoupling coach, and we're going to continue our theme of talking about toxic relationships. 2 weeks ago, I set the stage and the foundation by sharing with you 10 characteristics of toxic relationships. And a toxic relationship can look many different ways. It can be with a partner, it can be with a parent, it can be with a child, it can be with a group of people or a friend. So toxic relationships look many different ways. And so if you did not catch that video 2 weeks ago, you can find that on YouTube or on Facebook. And I'll put the link in the notes here as well. But this week we're going to talk to Sonyan White and hear a little bit about her experience of surviving a toxic relationship and how that pushed her into the career that she is in today of helping people and how she does that. So, of course, Sunday Inspiration is all about people who inspire me and inspire me to keep moving forward. And I know that you're going to love to meet Sonyan as well. So let me go ahead and bring her on. Welcome, Sonyan, and I want you to give you the opportunity to just share a little bit about you with the audience as we get started here.
Okay, well, lovely to be here, Vicki. I really appreciate our time together. So I'll start with currently what I'm doing. And as you said, I'm a certified conscious uncoupling coach. So what that means is that I show women who are in the middle of a divorce or a breakup how to manage the trauma, the heartache, and the logistics so that they can bring themselves and their families through this breakup unscarred, healthy, happy, and whole. I also work with women who are actually already divorced. It could even have been as much as 10 years ago in their past. But somehow these women have not yet managed to be able to move forward with their lives, and they're somehow stuck. And the conscious uncoupling process works really well with that. I live in the United Kingdom. I have 3 children, a dog, and a number of cats. And
You're a pet lover like me.
I am a pet addict, quite possibly. I don't want you to label me as a cat lady, but I do have more than one cat, and I love them deeply. I love to go out walking. I love reading. And since I've just fairly recently moved to the United Kingdom, I'm still learning, how to live life over here, because I've spent the last 25 years or so out in Asia, living in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. Well, when we wrap up today, I want to talk with you just a little bit more about the process of, how you work with clients and what that looks like. But I'd love to hear what inspired you to become a conscious uncoupling coach. I want to hear a little bit about your story.
I was inspired because I myself went through a divorce. I had been married for over 25 years, married to my sweetheart that I met at university. I believed I had a marriage that was going to stand the test of time. And in the end, after a lot of difficult circumstances, my marriage ended. And I found that particularly traumatizing, an experience. One, I was nowhere near my family. I had no support. I don't even have a right to exist in the country that I was in unless I am actually married. So there were logistics, but there was also the emotion about all of this. And Vicki, it would have been so easy, given the circumstances, given what Asia changed my ex-partner into, to be able to say, it's all your fault. And I don't believe many people would disagree with that. However, there was a part inside of me that, while it will not acknowledge, will not condone toxic forms of behavior, negative ways of being in my life, I also knew that I myself had contributed to the final ending of my marriage. And I wanted to take responsibility for that. It was devastating to me that in the end, my former partner was reiterating the toxic messages that I'd actually received from my own parents. I'm not worthy. I am stupid. I'm not ever going to be good enough. In the end, the person who was meant to rescue me from that, to protect me from that, turned out to be the one who also said the same thing. And I think that was what metaphorically brought me down to my knees in this circumstance.
Wow.
Yeah, and made me think, wow, am I cursed? Am I forever going to walk through life because of the toxicity of my childhood or even my marriage to be cursed, never to be able to have a relationship again? And I did not believe that could happen. And that's where conscious uncoupling came in, because it's not just a step-by-step way, get a lawyer, do this, do that. It's also about, where was I responsible? How was I not loving myself or taking care of myself? And looking at that, which is not an easy thing to look at, by the way.
Right.
But when I did go deep into it, you know what? I realized I would have divorced me. I actually would, because I needed so much for him to validate me. I love you. Do you love me? Do you love me really? I'm pushing at him and no one could have given that. I had to learn, and I chose to learn to do that for myself. And conscious uncoupling is a spiritual transformative process. So it guided me to go through that process, and I fell in love with it. And obviously I ended up doing it myself, and I am now a conscious uncoupling coach.
Wow, that's amazing. So there's a couple things that I heard you say in that whole story that I want to circle back to.
Okay.
And because they're so key, and where I really want to get these messages across today. So the first one I want to talk about is the fact that the hurts that you were experiencing in your marriage were a deeper reflection of what you had experienced in your childhood. So can you talk a little bit more about that piece of it? And is that typical when we're going through a difficult relationship, a toxic relationship, that there is probably roots even deeper than that particular what's showing up or reflecting in that relationship?
Yeah. Okay. So let's start that. I'm the eldest child of three. whose parents emigrated to the United Kingdom many, many, many years ago. And they were brought up differently to me. They had a different way of being parents. So in order to control me, in order to make me obey, I was sent a lot of very powerful negative images, negative metaphors. And I'm not important because I'm a female. I'm not worthy. I am not smart enough to be able to handle life by myself, and by myself without a man. And these were in my so deep. I don't know, at that point, I don't think I knew how to operate in life without that. Because what that belief system, when it's in you, does is it causes you to behave in certain ways. It causes you to think about other people in certain ways that actually make that come true in life.
And can I pause you just for a moment to say you probably weren't even aware that that was your thinking pattern?
Absolutely
it was,
not.
Right?
No, it can be actually quite devastating when you do realize, no, I had no idea about that. And I mean, who teaches anybody about this sort of thing? And well, for a start anyway, some of this was happening when I was seriously a young person, a powerless, person in a family. Not at all. As a child, what strategies, what abilities, what verbal expression could I make? And so I broke away from that. I thought I'd done that successfully. I became a chemical engineer. I got myself a degree. I then met and married my husband, and we started to travel around the world. I mean, on the surface, it looked as if I had got myself a life that's properly sorted and really, going well. Yeah. And but underneath that, there was, from my side of things, this need to be loved, which was a bottomless, am I okay? Am I doing all right? Do you love me? More even deeper than that, do you love me even when I am blah? Whatever, monstrous. And it's just constant. If you think about it, that's what little children do. So yeah, that's where I would say these were behaviors that I had generated in order to try to make myself feel safe in the world, because I don't remember feeling safe.
So as you entered into this relationship, bringing this with you, but not realizing that you were bringing it with you, what did the relationship, like, did it flow well? Were you unsettled with it? Or like, what space, where at were you when you really realized, hey, things aren't working the way that I want them to?
Oh, I married the man of my dreams. I loved him. My whole world was him. And I was, anything I could do for him, I would do. And he also thought the world of me. The beginning of our relationship, especially when I fell pregnant and we were starting a family, it was just fantastic. However, with the kind of work that he was doing, he was away a lot, he was traveling a lot, he was exposed to things in the world that I'm not, he got involved in certain behaviors that are really pretty destructive and were unacceptable. So, and I tried my best to, because there was a part of me, forgive, let's move on. But there became a point where there were too many times that I would have to forgive behaviors that are unacceptable and were basically destroying my soul, because it was hitting me in, well, this is not, if he truly loved me, he wouldn't behave in this way. If he truly cared, he wouldn't behave in this way. And the more I tried to be good, you know, the perfect stepward wife, the more I tried to be noble and spiritually, you know, superior in a way. It must have been really quite annoying. The worse it became, because I was living this totally inauthentic, unsustainable, fake version of me that felt that I just had to be so super, super good. And I couldn't even sustain it. I really couldn't manage it. And then in the end, there was one moment when I realized, no, this can't happen, no more. And he then moved on to meet someone else. So even though at every single stage I would have fought for the relationship, there's no relationship if one of you's already gone away, either emotionally, physically. And so I agreed to the end.
That's,
But back,
well,
sorry.
I wanted to just say, interject in there, because I see people who hold on to and cling to relationships that, you know, there aren't two people working together to make those relationships happen and effective. And one person has checked out, and they're putting that responsibility for the success or failure all on their shoulders and none on the other person's shoulders. So, you know, what's your thoughts around that and your experience and your words to other women who might be experiencing that today?
This is a really deep, deep question. And it's a unique scenario for everyone. I wish that there were 3 bullet points, or I could give you where you would go check, 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 out. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. I think it for me, and for the experience that I've had with my clients, the conscious uncoupling process isn't necessarily always looking at what's wrong with the marriage or what's, inverted commas, wrong with you. It's about what responsibility can you take, and what do you need to develop in yourself in terms of your skills and in your capacities and in your awareness, so that you can start to become a leader in that marriage, and to become able to not only love him but love yourself. And when you go through an exploration like that, it might be that there is enough left in that relationship for you to keep it. It might be that there is not. And so then the best thing is to end the relationship, but you're ending it knowing that you've done the best you possibly could in those circumstances. And another thing that is important in conscious uncoupling, it's not about looking at the definition of a marriage in the typical way, like someone who's been married for 50 years. Oh, that's an achievement. It may be, but it may not be. It's what did you contribute to that marriage? What did you bring into the world that is good as a result of that marriage? How did you learn and grow in that marriage? And those things you can take away and say, you know what, I learned this. These are things I have gained from this marriage. As long as there was obviously going to be certain things that you will never miss at the end of a marriage. Someone snoring, someone always wanting to watch a certain TV channel or whatever. But you can walk away. So that's why, if you don't know whether to leave, conscious uncoupling or some sort of spiritual transformative process similar to that would be an ideal way for you to be able to get the clarity that you need. What's mine? What's my business? And what's his and his business? Because you can only change what's in your business, really, because that's what you have control over.
And that's where
that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. And that's where the 100% responsibility comes in. And that's the other piece I wanted to bring back in from what you said earlier, is even in the most toxic of situations where we could completely blame the other person, there's always responsibility for both people to take. And so would love for you to speak to a little bit about that, because I know for myself, when I left a toxic marriage and moved on, one of the things, and I don't even know why I was wise enough at that point in time to do this, but I realized that I really had to take responsibility for me and the hurts inside of me, and not blame my partner. Although I probably still did blame some in the process, but I chose to take responsibility. So, but I see a lot of women who don't choose to take the responsibility, where they're not even seeing, where they're just in this blame mode and not accepting that at some level they did have some responsibility. So speak to that.
I think it's one of the saddest things that I see when you've got, and that's where people are stuck. They're not able to move forward because they, he did me wrong and I'm never going to be happy again until he apologized. Yeah. You know, and
especially if there's
he did
things going on still.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I totally accept if he stole all of the money, he done wrong. If he went off with other women, you know, and it hurts you, he done wrong. I'm not going to deny the behaviors that the other partner has done, of course, and they are not to be condoned, and they're not to be dismissed,
and they're not to be continually accepted either.
And then definitely not to be accepted. But the compassion is, obviously you've been hurt by all of this, but there is always a part where you made an agreement that in order to protect my safety, I am going to avoid something or skip over something. So in my example, I missed red flags.
Yeah.
Because where I missed inner intuitions, little suspicions that things were not as they seemed, that he was not where he said he was, or any of these kinds of things. But I chose not to pay attention to that. I chose not to focus on that. And then, as I described to you, use my strategy of being Miss Super Good Wife, which I couldn't sustain. That little part is my responsibility.
Gotcha.
Me not knowing how to have the courage or the communication skills to deal with such a topic in a way that would have been generative to our relationship rather than be, even more destructive. That's something I could take on and own and learn. What he did, no, that's his business, but he has to deal with that in his life and his karma and all of that. But that part I could do. And, if I learn how to do that, it will never happen to me again. Because in that situation, I would behave totally differently.
So that is the piece of taking responsibility and growing ourselves up. And as you were talking, I just had this thought also come to me, that I expected my partner to be everything to me, to meet every need that I had, to know how to fix the house, to know how to, do all of these things emotionally, physically, financially. And that's a pretty big expectation to put on someone else. Pretty easy to set that up for failure. And, I see that now, but I wasn't taking responsibility for doing those things for myself. And I think that goes back even to what you were speaking about the worthiness issues from childhood, because I also grew up with a lot of messages from childhood about unworthiness and being invisible, and your voice isn't worthy to be heard. And Um, so I can completely see how I never took responsibility. I was unaware at that point really of those pieces and how they played in. But it's so key in the healing and the transformation and moving on to invite that awareness in so that healing can come and those behavior changes can accept responsibility and move on.
And Vicki, it's not just for you.
Yeah.
It's for your children. This pattern stops here if we're prepared to take it on.
So we can have
Because
the power to stop generational issues
why
at
not?
this point.
Why not?
Yeah.
And that's leadership. That's a huge, huge transformation, because if I didn't become more consciously aware, I would have been passing, not quite I'm worth, but I would have been passing on ways of behaving like people pleasing
Mm-hmm.
to my children. And that would have been completely unconscious, because that's what I know. I take all this information and I put it through my filters, I put it through my belief system, I put it through what I know, and out comes, this is the right way to behave. But it isn't. If it's false, if there is a purpose which is unloving and dishonest, in a way, it's never going to be sustained in the end. So the idea that not only have I brought my children through this situation unscarred, but that's the healthy part, is that they know that they are valued, they have self-esteem, they've had it rubbed down their throats much, but they know what is toxic and not toxic. They know how to communicate. Whether they do it or not is another thing, but they have had that
That's their
model for them
responsibility.
by me, and that's the best I can do. And they see me becoming aware, you know what, I've got this pattern where I do this, this, and this when this thing happens to me. It's not very positive. It's not useful. I'm going to work on changing that. And they see me struggle with that, conscious incompetence, and maybe I get the hang of it, then I get it all wrong. They see me doing that. And they're not going to really notice it or even change it, but they do in the end
You're role
value it.
modeling. You're role modeling to them
My,
how to go through changes.
and for me, that's the greatest gift of parenting. That whatever my parents did or didn't do, they did have my best interests at heart. They had no other skill set, but they did not model what I wanted to take forward in life. I don't want traumatized children. I don't want children who don't know their own value. And that's absolutely key. My son came to me, and he's in his mid-20s now, and he just, in the middle of a conversation with me, just said, yeah, it's really hard for you because you don't lie. And I look, and you see, he absorbed that. He
Yeah.
knows I struggle with the times when you're telling the truth and you're not using the truth as a weapon. Oh, I'm just doing it, I'm just telling you the truth. No, there are ways of speaking the truth that are compassionate and timely and effective and can be heard by another person.
Not
And that's a
slapping.
life skill I'm still working on, by the way. But he knows I'm not going. There are very few times in my life when I will lie, knowing it really does have to be for the best interests, and it's very rare. So that challenge that I've set myself in life, they do notice it. So I got a lot of validation from that.
Well, and they know also that when they come to you, they're going to hear the truth about a situation. You're going to speak that with them.
And Yes, and they also know I'm not always going to fix their problems for them, which they want. But
So I
yes.
think that's so key as mothers who might be struggling in toxic situations right now, or even as you said, they've come out of it, but they haven't done the work to heal themselves yet. And this is what I want to get across too. What you're talking about is doing it for the kids and doing it to change. Number one, I think you have to do it for yourself because you want
Mm.
the healing for yourself. But we also have the responsibility to, when we are aware of these situations, to to change ourselves so that we can provide that hope of change for our kids too. So key.
Mm. Well, for me, it's a really important part of my DNA, actually, that I want to be able to say that I've done my best for them, and for myself as well, because it filters down. Now my son has a partner, and he behaves the way he's seen me behave. I mean, it's a little things like, this is how we do Christmas too, but loads of these things that, we try not to, we don't speak this way, we don't behave this way. And these are not commandments. They're actually, as my children got older, um, and go through the normal developmental processes that children do at each of the stages for each of the sexes, then you have these opportunities to start putting in the seeds of compassion, of empathy, of having a value system, knowing what you value in life. It is and then acting upon that. So for instance, for me, caring is one of my values. And it's not enough just to say that. It is, what does caring look like? How is caring modeling? But that's also, how do I care for myself first? And then I extend from an overflow the caring to the rest of the people around me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here today for my interview with Sonyan White. And actually, as we got to talking and got diving so deep into this conversation, what we ended up doing is splitting it out into another piece, because there's so much more left that I want her to share with you about the healing process and then about her work as a conscious uncoupling coach. So we're going to end this conversation here today. We're going to leave you in suspense. And in 2 weeks, the next segment of her interview will air. So don't miss that. Mark your calendar for 2 weeks from today, where you can hear the rest of my conversation with Sonyan. And in the meantime, you might want to reach out to anyone that you know that is dealing with a toxic relationship that might benefit from learning and hearing about this. And of course, there is 2 weeks ago when we had the series that started with part 1 of 10 characteristics of a toxic relationship. And then we'll have today being part 2 of just understanding what all happens, taking responsibility. And then part 3 will be on healing. Maybe we'll even have part 4. I think that we'll do that, as I'm just thinking out loud here. We'll have part 4 then 4 weeks from now, as I come in just to wrap up everything. So it's been a great to have you here today. Thank you, and enjoy your journey. Have a beautiful rest of your day.